guys? We are here for another day, or 2 days, I should say, of Overwatch League, the second half of Stage 4, week number 1 of the second season of Overwatch League. So, I was correct, by the way, no 4-0s. No 4-0s for both days, so that was pretty cool. Not that they were all super close, but Philly had two very close matches that they lost, both of them. But we did have some great matchups. Gladiators New York was very interesting. Vancouver Dragons, pretty much honestly like all of them. Like Dallas Spitfire was pretty entertaining. Shock Dynasty got a little bit of a to be a slaughter after the first little bit, but it was a great first 2 days of Rollock. I think that chat was super happy about it. I didn't watch chat too much, but I assume that they were happy, at least for now. I was happy. We got to see a lot of different compositions. And I'm going to do something a little bit different in this video. I'm going to just talk about a couple of big early takeaways. Obviously, we've only had 2 days, 8 matches total, so not a huge sample size. This meta is not set in stone quite yet, but I wanted to talk about what I thought were going to be a couple of very important things for this meta, and then I will whip through the predictions themselves. So, first of all, we saw the casters talked a lot about May being very useful. If you have a good May, your chances of winning are automatically elevated, and I would agree with this. I definitely would not disagree with this. She's very important, especially on I would say assault mode first defenses, and she's been used a decent amount of control as well. But she's a useful character in this type of meta, especially against like that Orisa Hog, and then if teams do try to pull off the dive. I've seen a lot of variation in the DPS. We've still seen some Sombra, not a ton. We've seen a lot more Tracer. We've seen Widow. We've seen a lot of Hanzo. Seen a pretty good amount of McCree from some teams as well. Genji on a couple of maps, or if you're Vancouver, Genji all the time because that's your carry. And well, man, Hacksaw, man, he is just as good as advertised on that Genji. Let me tell you. But you know that if you watched any part of that game, especially, whew, sorry, especially Anubis, that didn't like blow out. I should have turned it away a little faster. But anyway, the teams that made the biggest splash, I would say Washington. They took down Toronto, who is, I mean, probably the second worst team in the league, but it was still a nice win for them. Chengdu looked a lot better than I thought they would with the 2-2-2. Guangzhou looked really solid, and they edged out Philly. And then Gladiators looked amazing as they took down the Excel. But like I said, you talk about the May, but even more important, in my opinion, even more important is the Roadhog. One of the biggest things I saw that separated teams from other teams in the first 2 days was teams that are good at running Roadhog. They just win. You look at San Francisco, Choyobin. You look at Vancouver used a bit with Janu. He did play a decent amount of Diva. But Paris used Roadhog way better than Houston, and I think that was like pretty much the key factor in them taking that, and soon also did pop off, so that helps. But that really gave them a big edge because when you're talking about shield wars, having the Roadhog to shield break is so much better than Diva, and I mean, the best things you can do with Diva are just like kind of protect. You eat the little halts from Orisa, so your people can't get pulled up and yoinked. So you can eat those, which is useful. You can also eat blizzards, which Gods on Toronto was doing. Especially in the first half, he was just gobbling up every ult from Washington. But other than that, there's not a lot of utility. One thing I've noticed in this meta is Diva just gets shredded out of her mech because more DPS. And I think that as teams get a little more used to this, Running the Orisa Diva I think it's just gonna go out of style a bit. I think that overall there's more utility with the Roadhog because you can get the picks. You can use his ult. We've seen his ult used to completely zone out Genjis with Nano Blades, and it wastes two ultimates just for his. And Diva Bombs a lot of times don't get anyone. Sometimes they get 2 or 3 and they're huge, but a lot of the times they get nothing. And sometimes they're just used as a remeching possibility. So I think Roadhog is an insanely important hero in this meta, and the teams that play them the best are going to be the best. Talking about San Francisco, I've known this for a little bit because of watching streams. One of my favorite streamers, Harblue, is a Roadhog and Zarya player mostly, and Wrecking Ball. He plays some Diva as well, and then a couple DPS heroes. But he's a top 500 player all the time. And he's insanely good. He was on a contenders team. Currently is not on one. Hopefully he gets back on one soon. But I've seen him play against Choyobin sometimes, and Choyobin has at least one account where he essentially one-tricks Roadhog, and he's insane. Like, he might be the best Roadhog in the entire league. So I think at San Francisco, that just makes them even more scary. So that's the other big thing. Roadhog is going to be extremely important for teams to master and use well in this meta. But otherwise, I'm going to run through the predictions. So, Paris Eternal, Los Angeles Valiant. I like the performance from Paris against Houston, but I like the Valiant here. I have a lot of faith in their coaching. I think that they have really clicked as a team. They did get kind of stomped out by San Francisco in the last stage playoffs, but they were able to beat the Spark, which was an impressive win. And I think that they're still a bit of a better team than Paris. They're fighting for their playoff lives, so they're going to be extremely motivated. They're going to have a lot of time. They can look at Paris's match from 2 days ago and kind of pull out some things to be ready for. So I like Valiant here. I think they take this one 3-1. Then we got Boston Uprising taking on Guangzhou Charge. So this is another interesting one. Boston, that we did see them run some 2-2-2 last stage with like the Doomfist and the Sombra. I don't think they'll run that same composition because they had Zarya and Ryan, and you're not going to see those guys. You're going to either see it's looking like this meta is Ball Diva and then Orisa Hog. And that's pretty much it. Those are your two options. So I see that as continuing for all the other teams, even the ones that haven't played yet. But maybe this is just because I've seen Guangzhou in action. But I like their DPS duo a bit more than Boston's. I don't know who's really gonna. I don't know if Color Hex can really contest Happy on the Widowmaker that much. So I'm gonna go with the Charge here. I think this is another 3-1. I think Boston will take a map and keep it close, but Guangzhou edges them out in the end. Then we got Gladiators playing against the Outlaws. And I'm going to call this one a 4-0. I didn't like some of the stuff I saw from Houston. Their tank line looked a bit out of place. I don't have any confidence in Coolmat right now. I don't know what it is this season, but his performance just has not been up to par. I like the Gladiators support line more. Surefour and Decay looked extremely scary as a DPS duo, as I thought they would. And I think that Gladiators are just on at least one level higher than Houston, if not two. So I think they take this one 4-0 and improve that overall map differential. This is a very interesting match. We got Atlanta taking on Hangzhou Spark. So I'm going to go for an upset here. Shocker, Glenn picks against the Spark. I'm sorry, Spark. It's nothing against you. But I really like Atlanta here. I think that we're going to see the Erster Baby Bay DPS combo. I think is extremely strong. Dako, we'll see what his Roadhog is like, but he's an extremely good diva, which will be good for them on control maps. I don't know how good of a ball Pokpo is. I don't know exactly how good he is at that hero, but I still think he'll have a great performance, and they'll edge out the Spark. I need to see it from the Spark. They have a lot of DPS players. But they didn't. One of their players, is it Crystal? I believe it was Crystal. Was I don't even think he's back in the U.S. yet. And he got like fined by the team because he went back home for a week, but then it was like a couple weeks later and he hadn't made it back because his visa got delayed. So there's some issues there, and I think that he was a pretty big piece of their puzzle. Bozzy is their hit scan guy, but he hasn't played much, and I think that Baby Bay is going to have a really nice match, and Atlanta is going to get the upset victory. I'm going to say it still goes to 5, 3-2. So this is an important match. Two 12 and 10 teams fighting for that 6th spot. Seoul has a lot better map differential than Shanghai, so incredibly important match for both teams. I'd say probably a bit more important for Shanghai because their map differential is not very good. And I think Shanghai wins this one. I liked some of the things I saw from them against the Titans. There were a couple things that were kind of lacking. I think Envy actually played better than expected. But I think overall their communication wasn't awesome in that match. And then Seoul kind of got run off. They took map 1 pretty easily, and then San Francisco just kind of bullied them after that. So I still think Shanghai is a bit of a stronger team right now. Seoul's still experimenting with the lineup a little bit. So I like Shanghai, especially Ding and DM. DM had a pretty terrible game against the Titans. He really wasn't getting much value, but he's such a good player. I think he will find a lot of value next time, and they will take that victory. I'll say 3-1 again. Then we got the Spitfire back in action, coming off a victory against the Fuel. I don't think there's much to talk about here. Toronto started the season 5-2. Since then, they are 2-13. So they've been probably the worst team in the league since stage 1. I think London takes this one pretty easily. I think London probably takes their foot off the gas in map 2 or 4, and Toronto either gets a tie or snags one. I'll say they snag a map, but it's a pretty easy 3-1 victory for the Spitfire. And then you got the Vancouver Titans taking on the Florida Mayhem. I see this as pretty much being a stomp. The one interesting thing is if Florida can get some, especially on Junkertown, because that is a very good Widow map. I don't think Hureg can even like polish Saya players' shoes on Widowmaker. So I think that would be a big edge for Florida. They also do have that veteran leadership in Fate. So I think they'll keep a couple of maps close. But I'm going to say Vancouver wins this one. I'm going to say it's a 4-0 because they did look pretty darn good against Dragons. And I don't think Florida will be able to do much against the Haksal Genji. And the final match of the week. It is the Boston Uprising taking on the Chengdu Hunters. So, this should be a scrappy match. It should be very back and forth. I think Boston will win a couple of maps just because their style is a bit more clean than Chengdu. Chengdu makes a lot of mistakes, but Chengdu also pops off a lot. They have players come out and make huge plays. We saw Jinmu do it a bunch, as well as Bacon Jack and Yang Xiaolong in their match against the Fusion. So at the end of the day, I think both teams will take a couple of maps. I think they go to 5 because, like I said, Chengdu more talent, Boston better execution at times and better coaching, I think. So I think they take it to 5. They go all the way down to the wire, and Chengdu is going to clutch it out. I think their DPSs will just have a good enough day at the end of it to be able to edge the Uprising and make themselves 2-0 on the stage. So, those are the predictions for the last couple days of this week. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if there's any other key factors that you may have picked out, whether it's in terms of DPS heroes or support line, because I didn't talk about those as much. Because I'm curious to hear your thoughts after watching the first few matches. But otherwise, I am super excited for the rest of this stage. It's going to be awesome. I hope you guys are too. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.